All right, so it looks like we are live again. Let me refresh the page and make sure we're good to go. So we got disconnected for whatever reason. Looks like the internet or whatever went down for a brief moment, but we're back here. Let's try it again, and we will keep going from there. So everybody, sorry about that disruption, but yet things happen. So we're live again. Let's make this work. So Paul, we left off on the last thought there, but I assume that since the little disconnection, I thought it was probably lost. So we'll continue on. So we'll give it one more second, and then we'll call this part 2, and then we'll dive into the remainder part of what would have been our initial discussion, and then go from there. So let me make sure we're good to go, and I'll add a new feed to the chat.
Yeah, because I think I can see we're live right now.
Okay, so we are live. Okay, good deal.
But I keep loading. It keeps loading the first part though.
All right, so let me see. For those that may be watching us, give us a thumbs up in the chat so we can make sure that we are on the right path to having a good some good discussion here. So I'm showing about 15, 16 so far on my side, 20. Okay, so we are good. We got thumbs up here. Okay, so
I can't see anything, so I'm just going to roll with it. I'm just going to look at you, Mike.
Okay, so let me see. So make sure. So you do see me though.
Yeah, I see you in the call, but I don't see anything.
So
on
watch
YouTube.
this. Refresh your page, and I just refreshed mine, and it popped up under the live. So once it goes back, once it refreshes under the live.
Yeah, I see part 2. And if anybody's on the first one that got cut off, there's a little note in the top corner where you can click on it to get to part 2.
Yeah. All right. So we're good. So okay. Let's keep moving right along. So as always, we're talking about trade and how this trade situation, regardless, will not work out. It will not end pretty. But let's talk about some things that are more than likely going to be guaranteed consequences of this trade situation and tariff situation, which will be currencies. And so, one thing I talk about, I harp on, out of all the things happening around us, I can't keep my eyes on everything, but I know everything that's been done always boils back and always it will be reflected in our national currency, which happens to be the Federal Reserve note at this current moment. And so with all this trade spat back and forth, there will be no winners, especially here domestically, because I think the cost of living will go up as goods and services go up. And we can touch on what China might do with money pumping, as Trump mentioned. But the Federal Reserve note, let's talk about the timeline and how it looks like this tariff situation is speeding up the end or the dominance of the Federal Reserve note. And so I always like to throw out a 5 to 10 year time frame. Do you see that being the same thing as well, where it's no longer respected and wanted around the world, or no?
Yes, I'm not thinking that it takes that long. My natural line of thinking would be that it would be less than 5 years, only because, I don't remember exactly the webpage where they have the inflation calculators, but the U.S. dollar has already lost 97% of its value, right? So $1 now is worth 3 cents.
Yeah.
So, this last 3, you could argue that the hyperinflation has already happened, right? Yeah. All that's missing is this final 3%, right? And you could never get to absolute zero, right? So it'll just get to a point where it's just no longer used, right? Yeah. So it'll get to like 0.000, it'll get like the dollar will be worth 1 Satoshi of a penny, right? So essentially, I think that could happen quickly. When we saw it the most recently in Venezuela, that happened within the course of a year as far as the actual death spiral of the currency. Yeah. And it actually came with several types of, changes to the bolivar, the latest one being slashing 5 zeros off of it late last year. But, and people think, this is the United States, we're the reserve currency. This isn't some, podunk nation down in Latin America and South America. But that's not how it is at all, right? I mean, we're not immune to the consequences of money printing with an unbacked fiat currency. So I don't think it takes that long because I think it's already hyperinflated. So I think that what comes next is going to be, what they call the crack up boom, right? Which is where that's just a mad scramble for anything of value. And that's where you hear the stories from the Weimar Republic where, you go out to eat and you would drink a bottle of wine, and then by the time dinner was over, the empty bottle was worth more than the bottle was when it was new and it had the wine in it, right?
Yeah.
So I wouldn't agree that it would take that long, and especially if we're talking about the tariffs, if we're talking about China not being a buyer, or even worse, dumping their treasuries, if we're talking about President Trump talking about pumping money, if it's a people's war and the Chinese are going to go on a spending spree, right? All of these things are just going to be a multifaceted approach. I really don't think we have 5 more years of this.
Yeah. Now I want to actually pull this up here. So here I just typed in consumer purchasing power. So the chart from Fred, and so I thought this was interesting because it said USD. Now, here, help me understand this, because perhaps I'm reading it wrong. And so this graph here is provided by the Federal Reserve, and it gives us a visual display of what the purchasing power of the consumer dollar, the history of it since the creation of the Federal Reserve. And so in going up that, or going to the left of that chart back towards 1913, they're starting off saying that one Federal Reserve note, aka $1, had the purchase, or had the power of, say, 1,000. And now it's at 2%, whatever, but it's been near 2-3 pennies or whatever for the longest. And so think about what you could have purchased in 1913. So I've done some history charts or whatever, and $1 back then was more than enough to fill up a basket of goods, and depending on what profession you were in, that was considered a day's wage if you were out in the field somewhere, depending on where you're at. If you were here in Detroit working for Ford, that was like half a day's pay until he bumped it to $5 a day or hour or something like that. But we get the point. It could do a lot for you then. And so now you rewind or come to this current moment now, one single dollar does absolutely nothing. And so looking at that chart there, it takes more than $1 to do the very least of anything. So to acquire a bag of chips now, it costs $1 and then some 5 or 6, 7, 8 cents on top of that. So wouldn't that, to me, doesn't that spell that the dollar is not even worth those remaining pennies as far as what it can purchase, because you now had to add to it? You see what I'm saying? So back in the day, you could take one single piece of paper. So I could take one of these and I could do a lot of damage in one day. Now I need this plus some other pieces of coins just to get something. So the reason I mention that is because doesn't that look like it's already gone below zero?
Yes, it does. A couple more examples of that, right, are birthdays. My family used to give like the kids $1 for every year, right? Yeah. So, you were 12 years old and you give them $12, right? Now you go to a 5-year-old birthday party and like they're giving them $50 bills. You know what I mean? It's like you send a 12-year-old $12 and they're going to be like, what the heck am I going to do with this? I can't even buy a skin on Fortnite with this. Yeah. So yes, that's one thing. The other thing is, I think it was in the 50s, it could have been in the 60s, but the average house cost 2 times annual earnings, right? So don't quote me on the exact numbers, right? But the average annual pay was $3,000. The average house would have cost $6,000, right? Yeah. Now it's 10 times earnings, right? So now, if the average pay is $30,000, the house costs $300,000. And how can you do that? You're just getting further and further behind because it's the same house, right? Yeah. You got to buy a house, you got to have a place to live. Yeah. So you haven't really gotten any better or any worse, but it's become way more expensive because it's debt-based unbacked system. Yeah, absolutely, yes. Yeah. And I would agree with you. They say it's worth 3 cents, but really it's what is keeping it alive? I don't know, because like you said, there is nothing in this world that costs literally less than $1 right now. Right. Right.
I was saying, like, you can't get a pack of gum. You can't really do much. And so I say all that to basically say that this chart to me is no longer relevant, because if we were to look at what we can purchase with the consumer dollar, as I just mentioned, you can't do much with this, which means that it's already below zero to me, to where if it's below zero, the chart should be updated and there should be a little bit of a drop below that 0 point, which basically says you now need to add some additional coins with that if you want to get the very bare minimum. Because even going to put some air in your tire at the gas station is $1.50 now. So I remember it used to be a quarter.
It's ridiculous. Yeah, and they used to be free until someone figured out, wait a second,
you can make money off this.
Instead of offering a service to our customers that they would appreciate, let's put a machine in there so we can collect quarters and then charge them for it. Oh my goodness. But here's the thing, right? And then think about it this way too, right? A silver dollar. I don't have a silver dollar today. I got a Franklin $half today. It's pretty cool. I really like the eagle that's on the back of the Franklin. But $1, right, worth of constitutional silver, $1 worth of 90%, right? If you wanted to buy $1 of actual silver coinage, that's going to cost you like what, 12, 15 bucks? You know what I mean? So to say that a dollar is not worth anything, in addition to that, what used to be a dollar is worth over 15 of them, right? So, I mean, we just have a system that, you're right, it doesn't have to go to absolute zero. It's already, right now, it's what they call the confidence game, right? And right now, everybody's just all confident because, President Trump, I mean, let's be real. They're not going because they're interested in politics. They're going because they're interested in seeing a rock star, right? That's why his rallies are so full of people. And, because not, let's face it, he's a TV star, right? The Federal Reserve, they're rock stars. Jerome Powell can do no wrong. He's got the best interest of the economy and the markets in his heart. So, right now, everybody's got this confidence going. And on top of that, we were hitting on this yesterday on SGT report. Google is actively attacking us right now, right? If you do any kind of Google searches, only looking for any kind of news that Silver Doctors will put out, it's getting buried several pages below. Where our articles should be and would have been appearing. So not only is President Trump a rock star, not only is the Federal Reserve, the Fed heads all rock stars, but on top of that, there's just like a complete blanket blackout of any kind of real truthful information getting out there right now.
Yeah. I agree.
And that's that last shred of maintaining that confidence, right? That's what that's about.
Yeah. Very, very, very true there. So let's check in with the chat and see who's watching it, see if there's any questions. So we got Scott. Hi, Mike. Says, I was late to the part one. I'll watch it later. Yeah, so we got disrupted. The internet or whatever dropped, so that's what happened. But it's definitely some good stuff there if you guys want to check it out. We got Jackie here. Says, these times getting crazy, position yourself in gold and silver. Remember 1900s when the stock market crashed and people lost everything and jumped out windows. Look how long stock's been up. Wake up. Yeah, man.
Can they go up any longer, right? I mean, they've been up, exactly, right? It's like gold and silver have been going down since 2011. Stock's been going up since March 2009 when the S&P bottomed out at 666, right? So are they going to keep on going up? Ultimately, they probably will because the end game is hyperinflation, but there's going to be a crisis first, right? Because technically, they can't come in and start buying stocks officially until there is that crisis, right?
And that's another thing, like, I look at all the countries that have had hyperinflations, most recently the Zimbabwe and Venezuela, their equities markets in nominal terms went through the roof. So it looks good. Like if you're in those equities, depending on whatever you're holding. But yeah, if just to looking at the nominal numbers in a hyperinflationary environment, I'm sure it doesn't provide that same level of confidence that you're actually wealthy, given the fact your currency isn't worth anything and then your portfolio seems to be going up. But it's like, does that really even balance out or matter if you liquidate and try to get out, you're getting into something that's still not worth anything? So
yes, exactly. Which is why you've got to have that discipline to be able to maintain through the hyperinflation until the next system arrives, right? Because I mean, if push comes to shove and you have to let go of some of your gold and silver, I mean, that's one of the reasons people have gold and silver, because they need to have savings for a rainy day, right? But yeah, sure, your stock market's going parabolic, but if you sell it for the boulevard, then you still have nothing, and it's a paper game at that point. Exactly. You said it better than I can say it. Well said.
Yeah, good point. So let's keep moving right along. So let's let me see what else we want to touch on before we let go.
Two more real quick topics, and one of them is just like super quick, because I am not the Iran, Saudi Arabia, Israel, United States geopolitical expert.
Yeah.
But I will say this, last week you had asked me, is something going to happen in Venezuela or Iran first? And I said Iran. But I've thought about something since then, and it just happened to do with, there were these 4 ships that were sabotaged. Yeah. Did you hear about that?
I did, yes.
Okay. And we're saying, we're pretty much saying, it's Iran's fault, right? But here's the thing about that. And we've proven this, right? When they say that, Maduro's men, they're fighting Guido's men down there in Venezuela and all this and all that. Well, guess what? There's thousands of people around. There's thousands of smartphones. People can easily pick apart and say, that is a crock of crap right there. And you know it, because that's not what's going on. But if you're out in the, I don't know what they call it, the Gulf of Omar or whatever it was where this incident happened. Yeah. But if you're out in the middle of the sea, right, with not a lot of people around, you can pretty much say whatever you want. You can say that, Russia fired off a nuclear submarine missile at us or something like that. And who's going to know, right? Yeah. Because nobody's there. Nobody's got their cell phones.
Yeah.
So that's another thing that I didn't even think of is just that you want to talk about being able to control the narrative. Well, if you're at the high seas, who's at the high sea next to a U.S. aircraft carrier, right? Yeah. Nobody is. So you can basically make the narrative whatever you want it to be.
Yeah. Now, here's an article here. It says U.S.-Iran tensions soar with Saudi oil tankers attack White House warns. And so, once again, we got Iran and Saudi Arabia. Those are bordering countries, and they have their own little strip of water that they run oil out of. And so, it's unfortunate that the U.S. we're involved in an event that's on the other side of the world, for the most part, that we have a ship in there as well. We got ships everywhere because that's just how this whole thing has been held together. But the fact that it so happens that we're already talking about sanctioning them and doing all types of things to ruin their economy even more. But now here we are talking about the White House is giving a warning that Iran and between Saudi Arabia, like those are their own conflicts, but we're in the middle of that. And that's very interesting, man. And it's not by coincidence at all.
Yeah, exactly. And you remember, I don't know if this was last week's show. No, I think it was 2 weeks ago when we were talking specifically about Venezuela.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I had said was, watch how quickly it's going to turn, because if Venezuela falls apart, they're very quickly going to turn on to the next thing, because that's how the deep state rolls, right? And they sure enough have it. The switch has instantly flipped to Iran. Just in the past week and a half.
Yeah.
So, there was one more topic. Oh, Bitcoin, right? Bitcoin. Yeah. People come down on me because, they say, have to let them know anything about Bitcoin. So I would just like to challenge anybody, throw me a curveball, throw me a fastball, anything that anybody wants to ask about Bitcoin. I would love to debunk any myths right here and right now if anybody's got them, Mike.
All right. So let me see. So basically, if you guys got questions about Bitcoin, if we have any crypto enthusiasts out there, give us a question. And so Mario...
Bitcoin's been on a tear, right? Got up to nearly 8,000. I don't know what the price is today. I don't know if it ever breached 8,000, but Bitcoin's up 100% already this year.
A little shy of 8,000, I believe. Because they have, because I do follow that, so they have the consensus going on in New York now. So a lot of commentators are streaming from there. So I've been watching some of the things, and so let me ask you a question, Paul. So with the whole cryptocurrency or blockchain technology in general, between all the payment processing systems, all the technology that's coming about that can be transformational of our current financial system into something outside of the control, hopefully, of a centrally controlled entity. Will the blockchain itself, is that something that's promising, regardless of Bitcoin, regardless of the currency side of things, but the technology itself? What are your thoughts on that?
Yes, certainly. And it's not new technology, right? Yeah. That's just, rebranding to make it sound all cool and make it sound that it's new. Blockchain, right? All that means is, you're just building something on top of another, right? A distributed ledger. Ledgers have been around for thousands and thousands of years, on papyrus scripts, right? That's why we got that special font in Microsoft Word.
Yeah.
But, it's just so happened to that now it's for the 21st century and in the digital age.
Yeah.
So, it's kind of like, people don't call it email technology, right? I mean, but that's what it is. So yes, blockchain, blockchain technology. Yes, it is a game changer to an extent, but it's also not really a game changer because, when I worked in a soup kitchen, right, I know what spoiled food looks like. I know how improperly treated food looks like. I know when, what sabotaged food looks like. So, do we really want to know every single point where that food is passing from the time a cow was slaughtered at the slaughterhouse until it makes it to that little styrofoam and saran wrap package in Walmart?
Yeah.
Because there's some pretty nasty stuff that's going on, right?
Yeah.
So, blockchain is good and for what it can be used for. When it comes to finances, sure. Here's the thing, though, right? People will be like, Bitcoin's decentralized. It's not, right? You got to get on, Bitcoin's network to authenticate and verify the transactions. And second of all, you wouldn't ever transact without the blockchain because, if I sell you some gold coins and you give me some Bitcoin from your offline address, I'm not just going to take that at face value. I'm going to get that authenticated and verified on the blockchain, right? Yeah. And then you were talking about the control, right? Exactly, right? The government is going to try and usurp it and try and control it in one way or another, right? They can tax it, and they can tax it much easier. They can tax gold and silver because, they know exactly where Bitcoin is. They know exactly where the wallets are. They know exactly how they can just extract it if they want, right? Yeah. But when it comes to gold and silver, well, you got to find it. You know what I mean?
So you think that they can actually reverse or extract or manipulate the blockchain itself to where that thwarts the whole...
Well, not so much the manipulation, but as far as freezing Bitcoin addresses, freezing access to accounts. The U.S. Marshal Service has auctioned off seized Bitcoin before, right? Yeah. So most definitely. And then there's that whole, cloud of secrecy, Satoshi Nakamoto, and, this some 13-year-old kid in his basement who developed this code that was going to change the world. Give me a break. It's called the NSA, and it's called, some basement in the Pentagon is what it is.
Yeah. Interesting. So it doesn't look like we have any questions. We got some people here.
And the lack of questions shows you one thing, Mike. Yeah. It shows you that, is there really all this renewed interest, or is it just a pump again, Mike?
Yeah. And so that's one of my thoughts is that regardless of the origin of it, it's going to be, and it will be utilized as a medium of exchange out of the old system into something new. And that something new has already been determined. Alternatively, you have gold and silver as anchors, but yet from a speculative standpoint, knowing that the Bitcoin will rise, it's going to rise by default because it's basically people running from their currencies. And so the question is, how high will it go before it becomes bubble territory to where it pops or bursts or disrupted or returns to zero? And so are you able to ride the trend long enough to get out before it becomes problematic is my thing. Because it's not going anywhere. It is a financial asset. And what will really make it pump is all these institutions get on board and their push to get senior citizens into it through all the pension fund, retirement funds. So having some crumbs will definitely grow just because everyone's going to be pushed that direction because they don't want you to have gold and silver because that's out of their control, out of their eyes. So anyway it go, by default, it's going to go up. So,
I mean, it will go up. I think it's ultimately going to zero at the very end of it. Because, nobody's going to adopt it as their official sovereign money. It's already been proven that it can't be used as money, right? You can't, you go in to buy a pack of chewing gum or coffee in Starbucks and the fees cost you more than a pack of chewing gum, So there's just so many things that are wrong with it. But just the bottom line that the government's not going to let it happen anyway, right? It's ultimately going to zero because that's what a speculative mania is all about. As far as riding it, that's a $64,000 question. Back when I started learning about blockchain, back when I started learning about the cryptos, I bought Ethereum at 30, I sold it at 60, and I thought I was a genius, right? So, does it have another run of 20,000? Does it have another run to $1 million? I don't know. I also don't think that, that one guy down there in South America is going to use a shaft on live TV either because it doesn't go to $1 million, right? I can't remember what's that guy's name,
John McAfee, the security guy.
McAfee, so, I think it's ultimately going to zero because, that's what happens in these speculative manias because ultimately, Bitcoin is a brand and Bitcoin is a product, right? It's not money. It's not a currency.
Yeah. So Shalom says Bitcoin is not going to zero. And so as of now, at this current state, by there only being a total of 21 that will ever be in existence, according to the ledger and all that stuff like that, I think at the worst case scenario, there will be 21 million fools on this planet that'll be willing to keep one, which will give it a value of at least 1 penny. So I don't see it going to zero.
Well, don't forget too that there's been several forks already, so they can just fork it indefinitely, right? And as far as the 20-some million Bitcoin, there's 20 million other cryptos at the same time, right? So there's really no limit to any of this. And secondly, people who say Bitcoin can't go to zero, right? If there's no buyers, guess what the price is, right? The price is zero, right? Yeah. So you have to give it away.
Now watch this. Somebody, and I thought this is cool because I actually bought some. So it says people are still buying the Zimbabwe currency. And so,
yes.
So those things still have value.
Yes. I wish I could get some Bolivars right now because they're going on eBay for a premium because people like it just goes to show you that there are some people that are smarter about money than the mainstream wants to give credit for. It's just that we don't hear about this stuff. But certainly, I can't afford to, those $100 trillion Zimbabwe notes go for like over $100 each. I can't afford to buy a whole stack of those because it's just a nostalgia purpose, right? Yeah, more than anything. Really? But yeah, those because you can hold a $100 trillion Zimbabwe note in your hand. You can't hold a Bitcoin in your hand. Yeah. What are you going to do? Hold a flash drive?
Yeah. So I said, so as far as those Bolivar, Zimbabwe, so I actually bought a set. What was it? A couple months ago. I actually did a video or whatever on my channel as well. But I collect all these expired currencies. So I got something. Well, I got some here, but I had something. But anyway, so yeah. But interesting conversation, gentlemen. I appreciate you guys chatting. So it looks like we are on our 25 points. So Paul, we could probably go for another hour if we wanted to. But out of respect for everyone's time and day, we're gonna get ready to wrap it down. So as always, I appreciate everybody who has chimed in the chat. It didn't look like we had a lot of questions. We had more so some comments. So hopefully we got to your comments. And so as time goes by, we will improve and we will find more ways to get you involved. I will have a number coming. I promise, if you guys to call in and share your thoughts and let your voice be heard directly. But Paul, any last thoughts you want to leave us with? And then I'll share my thoughts and then we'll call it a wrap for this afternoon.
Yes. Fed darling Neil Kashkari gives a speech tomorrow, and I don't remember if there's 3 or if there's 4 Fed speeches on Friday. So I'm a little bit early on this, but one of the things that I think is going to happen is I think that starting today, but certainly building up through the rest of the week, I think the Fed's going to start getting a lot more vocal about these markets, especially with these gyrations we've been seeing in the stock market. Because the trade war ramped up last week. It really ramped up the first 2 days of this week. So I think the Fed's going to step in here and try and, do their whole like horse whisperer, like the market whisperer thing. Yeah. So those are my thoughts. Here we sit, still can't get above 15. So, hey, that sounds like buying opportunity to me with gold to silver ratio over 88. Your thoughts, Mike?
My thoughts are, I actually got a question here. So I was trying to read that. So I wasn't able to formulate my last thought the way I wanted to. But it looks like we're being asked, what does U.S. Treasury do with all the tariff money it gets from the China now as per Trump? So do you understand that question?
Well, I mean, Trump's saying that it's just a tax that's paid to the United States government. So it is, right? A tariff is a type of tax, right? But we're the ones that are paying it, right? Yeah. And actually, Larry Kudlow let that slip on Sunday, right, where he kind of went off script a little bit, and he said, well, Americans are paying the tax because Trump's been saying the tariffs, because Trump's been saying all along that Americans don't pay the tariffs, right? But there's several ways that you can collect the tax, right? You can levy a tariff, you can tax income, you can tax, goods or services. So it's going to the government, but the bottom line is, we spend more than we earn in revenue. So ultimately, it's it's gone as soon as we get it, right? Because we can't even afford if we didn't have the tariffs.
Yeah, it's all. So all the currency or all our obligations have already been pre-spent. So everything that comes into existence in the form of our debt has already been allocated to go towards social funding programs, welfare, Medicaid, all that stuff like that. So the tariff aspect, as you mentioned, comes from us because it's going to be interesting to see come summertime these tariffs when they kick in, when inventory gets low and they got to start reordering and stocking up. So like Walmart, for example, we're going to really see how these tariffs are impacting our country when Amazon or Walmart, which are the two biggest retailers that ship everywhere, when they go up on their prices to counter those tariffs on their end, we're going to see if people will continue to spend because most people have cut back because of cost. Now, if your primary goods are now more expensive, then what do you do? How do you cut back there? So by this summer, I believe we should be able to see the side effects of these tariffs if it doesn't get worse between now and then. So
I think that's a great projection. I would agree with that.
All right, but my last thought is simply, so now I'm talking about this, as you mentioned earlier, buying opportunity. And so one of my future approaches or little slogans I'll come up with is utilizing this time to get the most bang for your buck. And so as we start off talking this part 2 about the dollar's purchasing power and lack thereof, right now it's probably as good as it's going to get to take what you do have and to put it to work for you before you lose it. So do whatever you got to do, strategize, plan, make sure you know what you're doing and feel comfortable with what you do, but get the most bang out of your buck while you can, because right now might be as good as it's going to get in the near future. So stay prayed up, be blessed, and have fun with what you do, and enjoy life, man. That's the biggest thing. Use these dollars, enjoy life the best you can. So anyway, so Paul, it's been great. Everybody, thank you guys for tuning in. We will call it a wrap for this week. Be back next week, same time, same place. hopefully it was just part 1 and not part 2. But anyway, if you guys enjoyed this, don't be afraid to hit the thumbs up button. So we just want to get you guys to show some love via thumbs up. That'll be supportive. And if you want, share this video on your social media. Tweet it out to somebody like President Trump. Let's get it to go viral so people can understand what we're talking about here, because you won't see this type of talk nowhere else apart from alternative media. So that's what we're here for. So, Paul, it's been great hanging out again. Let's connect again next week and get better with everything we do, my friend.